hot or cold?
Cold is fine.
Are you sure? Mm-hmm. All right. That means Jessica's going to put the option on hot. Although she'll probably know too. Okay. Jessica and I worked together when she was still in school.
Oh.
And she was an intern.
Oh,
Her
okay.
name is
Kat?
That's right.
Pronounce your last name.
Weiss.
Weiss. Okay, Weiss. Excellent. Good. And Tiffany. Wonderful. Thank you guys for being here. Good. We've got your water and everything. Anything else you need? You're getting sorted here? Is Kevin not going to be joining? Do we know that?
I think that's the last thing I saw was he has 2 jobs and he may not work.
Okay. Excellent. That's fine. Okay, that's why we got 3 seats out. Let me just adjust the microphones. We were going to pair you guys off. What we may do instead is just sort of throw it towards the middle here. We're going to be live streaming this because we still have a bunch of folks who are watching online, so we have cameras up there. Is that okay?
Do you think it'll catch the whole edges of the table?
It will. It certainly will. The
Okay,
video
great.
will. But we want to make sure it catches the audio as well.
Awesome. I would say Jessica might be the lowest speaker of
Okay,
us.
so we can maybe give her a little more on the thing here.
I mean, she speaks up, but it's not a.
That's true.
It's not that
We'll
she
try
doesn't
to catch
speak.
it here,
It's
and
just not
we
a
can adjust it as needed. We have the
delightful.
sort of Jerry rig system back there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, we're really excited to be invited to talk about this important situation.
Thank you.
Make sure my phone is off. Make sure my phone is off. I have that one on to make sure Jessica's
And we built at that time.
hideous ankles.
Those are pretty. We were the beginning. I was doing the whole victim services division, but the add-on at that time, which I was super passionate about, was supervised visitation for families where violence had been
That's
witnessed.
Cornell. That is Cornell. I've been looking for him.
Oh,
I've been looking for him.
super unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I looked all day for him yesterday.
Oh my God.
No, on Friday. I know him. I used to work at Holland Hill.
Yes. Me too, believe me. 1, 2, 3. Everybody getting this? Are we getting a little closer? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Is it coming through? All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Mike, can I borrow you for just a second to do a little sound test? Thank you. Good.
70 was in my mind.
70 something.
And then cold weather clouds
Cold weather clouds.
was the kind of the way that it would vary. And then back
Okay, I think we're fine with that. I just want to see, can we ask them to just speak into, have we tested that yet?
I tested it myself, but let's test
Okay.
it with you.
Mike's going to help work our sound here.
Oh my God, his name's Mike, and we're going to do a Mike.
Exactly. We're not above a good.
I hear that one every now and then.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I couldn't help it. I'm
As it
nervous.
is right now, you'll just want to pass it and give. I mean, you don't have to like swallow it, but just give.
Try and be in front of the microphone if we want to speak. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so right in the middle of the room, if you just want to test out saying anything into it. So it's
Something like that. Guys, we're going to do a quick mic check if you don't mind just keeping it down for a second. All right, Tiffany, go ahead.
Hello. Oh, yeah. How about now? Can you hear me from here?
Yeah, that's a little far.
Yeah. How about now? How about now?
If you want to pass it, we can just sort of swing it.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Let's do that.
It's just
How about now?
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Okay, it might pick you up from a little. Check 1, 2.
yeah.
It should pick you up from a little farther away now.
Just testing out our mics.
Excuse me. Oh, I see. Spruces up pretty well. I'm coming to church. I haven't been in my church either. Like, I haven't even been in mine.
I haven't been in one.
Jessica, if you just want to count to 3 in there, and when you sit down, we're going to test these mics. And
Are we gonna? So we have to stay. We're gonna stay masked. Okay. Okay. That's fine. 1, 2, 3. Oh my.
That's awesome.
Good. All right, so y'all just, when y'all are ready to speak, just make sure you're speaking into a mic, and that'll capture it for our at-home viewers, and then we'll actually do it in everybody's ears. All right, we'll get get started in just 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm just going to get a little bit closer to Jessica, so I'm not sitting here trying to figure
Oh
out what
yeah,
to do.
because I don't know which microphone. Hi. No. I would like some water. Yeah. I love those options. I would like the cold water. Oh yeah. She said, yeah. That's my husband, Ricky. Yeah, I got married in February. This is Kat and Tiffany.
Oh, congratulations.
He's nervous about being here.
Let me just call him out.
That's right, because I thought you were going on your honeymoon. You weren't going on your honeymoon, but you were taking off. I took off for the. Yeah, but you should have. He gets nervous in spaces like this.
Ooh.
Does he want to hug?
All right, my friends.
No, I think he's okay.
Well, we're going to get started because we know we have a limited amount of time and we want to dive as deeply as possible in the next 40 minutes or so. I want to welcome you all here, but especially welcome our guests who are here with us today. As those of you who have been participating know, we have been in, this is the third of a three-part series on the issue of homelessness and affordable housing, particularly in our town, in our county, in our local context. We've had a couple of wonderful sessions that Rachel Waltz led, and she gave us some of the structural understanding of the issue and some of the components that contribute to homelessness, as well as some of the ways in which people have tried to address it and are addressing it, and some of the hoped-for future ways in which we will address it. So Rachel really filled our minds with all sorts of wonderful information. Today, we want to open our ears to those who are sort of on the front lines of this issue and are dealing daily with people who are experiencing homelessness, who are fighting for affordable housing, who are trying as best they can to address this crisis, to combat it as well. And as you all know, this is something that is housing and fair housing and safe, dry, warm housing is not just something that we consider a human right, which we do, but also in our Christian convictions is a core to both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so we are here because we are supposed to be here, and we are engaged in this issue because we are called to, as disciples, engage in this particular issue among others. So I'm glad that you're here with us. I'm very glad our panelists are here. Just a word about how this is going to work. I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves, say a little bit about who they are, what they do, and maybe a little bit about why you do it, because that would be wonderful to hear. And then I've got a few questions that I'm going to pose to them, as well as, and then once we get through that, with whatever time left, we will open up for questions from the floor. If you pose your question to the panel, I'll just repeat it so that it gets captured for the online viewers at home. Sound good? All right, well, I'll let them introduce themselves, but Tiffany, do you want to start us off and just tell us your name and what you do?
Okay. My name is Tiffany Hall, and I am the clinical coordinator of the Street Outreach Team, which is a street outreach harm reduction and deflection program. And I'm a licensed clinician, so what I do is within our team, I help those who have mental health or substance use issues, and I help guide those and make referrals for that. But our street outreach
In the moment.
yes, in the moment.
She
On the
goes
street.
to them.
I go
Yes.
to them, yes. There's not an appointment set where, that's the way our program was designed, that we go out and meet people where they are. So that's what I do.
Great, thank you, Tiffany. Kat, do you want to grab one of the microphones?
Thank you so much. I get to work with Tiffany. I also get to work as a coordinator of the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness programs. I really want to make the distinction around how the programs that we have started recently are really addressing the gaps that we have identified in our gaps analysis, which are really easily identified in the Orange County OCPEH.com. Because Jessica is also a leader in the COC, the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. But I'm not in Jessica's agency. So there's the coordinated entry and continuum of care Orange County group where all of us programs do a collaborative, whole community interest thing. And then me, I'm in the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, but we are really focused on gaps. And so we are street, and what the gaps that we've recently filled are street outreach, harm reduction, and justice deflection, rapid rehousing, total best practice model of ending homelessness in a progressive way to stabilize ongoing, coordinated entry to the whole system, no wrong door, easy telephone screening in or in person. And that's the housing helpline. I hope that lots of people in the last year and a half have begun to know that there's a housing helpline in Orange County.
Yes, that has been a good learning of these last couple weeks. Yeah,
Wonderful.
we've used it.
Terrific. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And housing stabilization and homeless prevention, catch people at that 14-day window before they've gone into a homeless need, see if there's some negotiation with the landlord, see what we can do to bridge that and not go down into homeless services, which we are happy to provide and we're always going to have to. Some people are going to need help. There's a one-time, what do we get? Of our 278 homeless, 220 of them were homeless for the first time. Lots of people, it's just a little help, but it's going to happen. We're going to have those one times. So those are the 4 programs that I'm involved with as a coordinator of programs at the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness.
Thank you, Kat. Jessica?
And so, before I start, I just wanted, if Tiffany and Kat wouldn't mind, why do y'all do this? Because I know them, and I know Kat, I've known her for years, and Tiffany is an amazing person, and I want them to, I think it's important to share why they do what they do, because they're so talented, they could have done 1,000 other things, so.
It's just a passion of mine, and it's just something that I've witnessed some of my family members, and also I never know if that could be my situation or my position. So I feel like it's just always important just to help and give out and give back to the community in that respect.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Jessica. So I'm someone with a supernaturally caring spirit anyhow, and I've got a lot of nurturing that just kind of comes through. But it's also true that I, camped in the car a lot as a child. After maybe some beating and some eviction, maybe a lot of times. Things have changed a lot since when I was a child, but it sure does make it real approachable for me to do this work because I'm not confused about how it happens, what happens, why people are stressed out and make maybe wacky decisions in the moment. It just makes it real approachable for me, and I'm really happy to be able to do this work, and I'm thrilled to be on this team.
Thank you, Kat.
My name is Jessica Aldave. I'm the Shelter and Housing Director, and I do this work. I've done this type of work for about 15 years, working with vulnerable populations. I do it because I love it. I love the stress. I love the high energy. And I like helping people, just simple as that. I enjoy helping people, even though sometimes the structures in place can provide really almost insurmountable barriers, but I love the work, and I love the day-to-day eye contact, helping someone in the moment. Meeting people when they're not at their best can be hard because, like Kat said, people don't make the best decisions when they're really stressed or depressed and things. So all of our positions, we meet them where they are, and we say, we're not judging you. We hear you, we see you, not your situation, but we see you as the person that's just in this situation. And so that's why I do the work, because I enjoy helping people.
Thank you, guys. Well, we appreciate that. And again, thank you all for being here and making the time this morning to do this. I guess I wanted to start with the first question to say sort of, what are you seeing right now in your world as you go about this work currently? What's the state of things? Help bring us up to speed of where things are at. I mean, we've all been sort of scattered to the four winds for this past 18, 20 months, and we've heard stories of how things have gotten worse or better, or some things are good, some things are not. And could you help explain to us a little bit about what is the reality of homelessness now in Chapel Hill and in Orange County as you see it?
I won't speak specifically to that part. I'll
Okay.
let them do that. But homelessness in general, it's not who you think it is. And most people think, oh, it's the person holding the sign, laying out on the street. That's not what homelessness always is, and that's not what it is here in Chapel Hill. We have several people who just can't meet the day-to-day needs, or they just can't afford to live in Chapel Hill. So it's people who are everyday working people. They live in their car. They may live anywhere else or house to house, but it's not necessarily just someone who's out on the street who you see just laying on the street or something like that. So that's what I would say the state of homelessness has become in Chapel Hill and everywhere because of the pandemic partly, but just in general.
That's really interesting, Tiffany. Thank you. Kat or Jessica, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to be the little bit numbers person on this. Oh, terrific. Thank you. Yep, exactly. So in your homelessness 101 and 201, it was mentioned about the sort of affordability and the lack of affordability in housing. And without getting into too much detail, I want to say it's really not that hard to look into some of the things that the real estate profession has had to do to get in line with being more humane, to understand how this got stacked up into the situation it is around not having affordable housing. There have been just blatant practices in place that limited access to long-term housing. We just have to understand that is the history of where we're coming from. We've got some work to do on that. And then, so the status of housing is that our number one sort of like most priority gap is our number of units that are affordable in this zone we call extremely low income. When we talk about affordable housing and we get involved with affordable housing projects, I always want to try and take an opportunity to be like, let's talk about affordable for who? Because what we have is a really structured way that we're all accustomed to breaking this down as based on an area median income, AMI. Around here, we're at AMI of $80,000 to $100,000 a year. So at 80% of AMI, we're talking about professors. Then we start dipping into 50, and between 50 and 80%, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about LVNs, we're talking about, hard workers. So people might get into affordable housing conversations and think that they're talking about homeless people. I just want to make sure and understand, when we say affordable housing, we've got some, I don't know what is the best way to say categories, layers, something. Our group, we want all the affordable housing. Please do not misunderstand me. We want all the affordable housing. It's a basic tenet of humanity. We just have got to stop having so little of it. So ours is the 30% of AMI. When we start talking about people on a fixed income in this community, what a lot of people make on the fixed income is $770 a month. At a regular housing to debt income ratio, that means we need an affordable bedroom for $220 a month. And that is just exactly what it breaks down to, and we need about 200 of them. Okay.
And just to piggyback off what Kat said, or actually what Tiffany said, homelessness, the state of homelessness right now is not you think the person just panhandling. It's more so the families who cannot afford the electric bill, cannot afford internet when their child's doing remote learning. And so they're calling to access not only housing help, but resources to just maintain the housing if they do have it. Something I want to read. So in 2021, an Orange County renter earning the mean wage of $13.93, they would need to work 63 hours per week for a standard 2-bedroom apartment in Orange County. 63 hours, making $13.93. And so that just shows what lack of affordable housing, and for average people, regular people, cannot afford to live in Orange County. And something I think is important to talk about with the state, we try not to label, like, these are homeless people. We try to say this is a person unsheltered, because everyone here goes through experiences, and it would be a terrible thing to just be called by your terrible experience. So we just try to keep that in mind as well. And anytime you're in a space and you hear the word affordable housing, I think you should just press, what is affordable housing to you? What does that look like to you? What's the mean income to you? Because people say it because it's a nice buzzword, but sometimes what they're thinking is affordable is not what we're thinking is affordable. On a day-to-day basis, in the shelters, we see all types of people. We've had teachers in the shelter. We've had nurses. We've had people who were living quite well, then someone died, and then they lost that income, or they got hurt. You know, things can happen to anyone. So I just think it's always good to not try to separate, like, the other and us. It's all of us, because the other could be you. Okay, I ramble sometimes.
No, Jessica, that's helpful. And it's helpful to think about, because the way we talk about this changes the way we think about it, right? Our words matter to how we conceive of these issues. And
Yes.
it's really helpful to think about this as something that is a reality for people more than just the people we may assume, oh, they must be homeless or they must not have a place to sleep. I mean, this is something that, 30%, that's $30,000 if you're basing on a 100,000 thing. That's working hard and making money.
Yeah.
And so that's, to be in that zone and be that precarious, I think that's something that's helpful to hear about as well. What other sort of factors do you guys see as the challenges to your work as you're trying to go about this? So affordable housing, what exactly that means, and if you could actually make it quote unquote affordable for folks. What are some of the other challenges that you're facing day to day or in the sort of long term that you're working on?
I would say sometimes the stigma of people wanting to reach out to get help. And like Jessica was saying, sometimes you may have had $100,000 income, and then you go down to like 20, 25,000, and then so it's like, oh, I was here, so I don't know how to go reach out for these services, or I don't want to because I don't want anyone to look at me a certain type of way. So I think the stigma is one thing that limits or harms us a little bit from reaching our goals of ending homelessness.
That's helpful. Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, the stigma is also a barrier because we have HCV, housing choice vouchers, and when we have things given, we try to talk to the landlords and like, hey, this is the HCV, it's a stigma, like, we're accepting this type of person, and the stigma permeates through this community, and it's kind of also why you see a lot of the affordable housing is not in the front, it's behind trees and forest areas, and then in the main areas you see these really lavish apartments and things. But that's one of the barriers, is the stigma of the landlords thinking this is what type of person we're going to be receiving, and the stigma of just everyone, and you get hesitant about asking for resources if you feel that people are going to judge you and attach something to you, like, oh, you're lazy, or you just didn't work hard enough. Well, a person can work 63 hours and they're still for this county, they're not working hard enough. So I just think that's a barrier, is the stigma.
No, that's a great point. Kat, did you want to add anything? Or?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Except for, I would just I'm sorry. I was having a thought. I couldn't remember what it was.
Make sure to speak into the microphone so we can catch what you have to say.
Really reflecting back on Jessica's point of really trying to remember that people are in process. What you're seeing right now is like potentially just like the worst time in their life, you know? It's not who they like are.
I think that's good, and I think there's something in that for us that we talk about pretty regularly in church on Sundays, about how we understand who it is we are, and how we understand who other people are, and how the assumptions we make and the ways in which we identify them or group them or label them. That's an ongoing process for all of us, I think. Well, let me ask you this. We heard from Rachel in the first couple sessions about some of the contributing factors and what were some really impressive sort of ways. It was sort of like you needed this like net to try to catch these different, because there's so many different components that contribute to it. Could you talk a little more about how you're using sort of that diverse approach to addressing needs? I mean, around mental health, around addiction, around abuse, around, all trauma, things like that, to try to address the whole person as opposed to just getting the roof over their head, because that's a part of it, but it's not ultimately going to be the full answer.
Yeah, so at the shelter, so I'm the shelter and housing director of permanent supportive housing, and then we have the women's and family shelter and singles, that's Home Start, and then we have the men's shelter, which is community house. So the goal of all the shelters is housing first. But like Noah was saying, there's a lot of other barriers that a person brings in. So it's not like they can sit down and say, okay, let's do our housing plan. With doing a housing plan, we need to first address sometimes there are mental health issues. Sometimes there's lack of employment, lack of income. Sometimes there's trauma. We do trauma-informed care. And that means when you meet a person, you're taken into the point that they have been experiencing trauma or has had trauma in their past life or when they were younger. And so, for example, when they're coming to the shelter, living in the streets, you don't know if that person was robbed. You don't know if they were assaulted. Like, we have to take into account that this person probably has some trauma.
We know they were exposed to homelessness.
Exactly. That's the trauma in itself, being exposed to homelessness. And so we talk about their mental health. Maybe they've had a gap in getting their medications for their diabetes or something else. I mean, there's so many things, like Noah was saying. And Tiffany, oh, bless her heart, I mean, she goes right to them. So wherever they are, her team will go to them. And when they're out there in the cold, or maybe they have no cell phone, sometimes they can't even access the resources, because not only do they not know about them, but even if they do, they don't have a phone to use to even call. And so that's why her part, so rad, is so important, because they go and try to fill those gaps. Like, you don't have a phone, you didn't even know about this resource, I'm here in front of you.
And I was just going to say, our team consists of me as a licensed clinician, so I'm a licensed mental health clinician and a licensed clinical addiction specialist. So I work with both of those areas. And then we also have 2 peer support navigators who go out into the field and help direct. Well, we all go out directly. Yeah. But they will go out directly, provide supplies, provide resources, like Jessica was saying, just sometimes a phone, just so that they can call different people that they need to. So I would say that's how, one way we help address it, that it's a collaborative effort. So the team was designed just for that, so that it is a housing first approach, but we also have these components, knowing that mental health may be a barrier, or substance abuse, or substance use.
And some other barriers, something just simple like not being able to make medical appointments. Think about a pain you might have in your foot, something very simple that you would just say, let me go to urgent care and make an appointment. But if you're unsheltered or don't even have the income to pay your light bills, that foot is going to keep hurting for a while. And then it might affect your ability to work. And then something else happens, and it's just a snowball effect. And so housing first is the plan, but we do have to address these other barriers. Sometimes they're legal barriers because of the stigma, and they've been maybe profiled or arrested for things, sleeping in areas they shouldn't because they're homeless. So they get discharged, and now they have this and this and this. So we think of it as a big spider web, like we're trying to pick through it and one thing at a time. And then once we do get them into housing, it's not like, okay, mission accomplished, good job. Okay, well, some people have not even been housed before. Some of them have gone 20, 30 years without housing.
Wow.
We have to have more supportive services in this county to help support those that have the housing. And that's also what I do as one of my programs, Permanent Supportive Housing. We have 20 families. We have 2 case managers, each with 10 families on their caseload. And that helps people who normally would not be able to maintain their housing. We have that extra support services to help them maintain the housing, even down to how do you negotiate your visitors, because some of them don't even know how to say, no, you can't come in my home. You have negativity or negative habits. It's so much that comes with it. So we are chipping away at it a little at a time. So.
But I mean, it's so impressive. And my exposure to the work that the IFC is doing, I was just incredibly impressed at the sort of the motivation to say, yes, we are caring for you, and we're trying to get you into a place that's going to be good for you in the long term. And the rate at which you do that is quite impressive in terms of the number of people you have coming to you and looking for that. It's a massive transformation. So Jessica, thank you, and thank your team. Thank Gunzo, thank everybody that's going up doing that. But I mean, there's a whole team of folks that work in our town that are doing this kind of work and giving themselves to it, and I'm glad. Hannah, I've got 2 more questions, and I'm going to come to you, okay? But you'll be first, all right? My first one is, the first of the last ones, is so what gives you hope as you're doing this work, though? Because you are battling some really difficult things. What is it for you that allows you to say, all right, I'm going to the office, and I'm going to do the best I can today, and to keep doing that day after day?
The thing is we've got such great participation here in Orange County. We really know it's a solvable problem. And when we keep being specific about the safety net we're creating and who is able to get into housing quickest and get the units that they can afford and get them in there, people's health gets better in housing. People get better in housing.
Yeah.
So that's what it is it's continuing on this extremely specific plan that our continuum of care has been able to lay out and make sure we're doing enough to keep people, supported in their jobs so that they can continue to do their job.
Yeah.
To work this safety system.
Mine is simple. Mine's just the success stories. Seeing that someone was homeless and went from here to having a home, a job. Now they're making all their mental health appointments. It's just a success story, so that's what keeps me going.
Good. That's wonderful, Tiffany.
I agree with both of what Kat and Tiffany said, the success stories and that the hope that this is a solvable problem and that we're just doing our part. Sometimes it can feel like we're just putting a Band-Aid on a wound that's not going to heal and that we're just patching up things. But I heard a parable from someone that said that a woman was walking along a beach and she was throwing starfish back. I see heads nodding. Throw starfish back, and people are like, "You're never going to get all these starfish back in the water." And basically, she said it matters to this one starfish, and that's how I look at it. Like, we alone cannot end homelessness, but this one person, it matters to them. Last night it was really cold. It got down to 27 degrees, and we have cold weather shelter right now, which means we are allowed to have extra capacity. And we only can have 14 extra men and 3 extra women. And at first it was upsetting to me and the staff. They're like, we need more space. We need to let more people in. And it can be disheartening, but it's like, well, at least it matters to these 3 women. They got in out the cold. These 14 men, it matters to them. And so that's how I keep going. Like, this problem is bigger than me, but I just have to keep swimming.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you are, Jessica. No, it's true, because it does matter, and it's interesting. You have to try to keep that balance between the individual, the personal, the sort of the small goal, while working towards those bigger goals. Because if you're just charging at the big goals and you don't take note of those small successes or those impact you're making in the immediate, it's going to be hard. But I mean, it's a really wonderful way in which you guys are talking about that. So thank you.
Thank you. I just
Go ahead,
also
yeah.
want to just add one more thing. Also, people don't think about the staff. Like the resident advocates, Tiffany's team, Kat's team, the staff sometimes they're vicariously triggered by some of the stories that sometimes it's traumatic to hear things or see things often. I mean, and it hurts you and you carry it. And so we are really strong at IFC, particularly about self-care. And we tell staff, if you need a moment, you take it. If you need a day, you take it. If you need a week, you take it. Because we know how heavy it can be. And for us to give out of our well, we have to replenish, And so that's another part of that. Just
That's
sad.
good. That's wise, and that's true. We're going to run out of steam otherwise. Yeah. So tell me this. You have a room full and people online and a whole church full of folks who care about this issue, who want to help, who want to be engaged in it. What are some ways that you know about that people like sitting here today could try to help out the work it is that you do? What are some of the needs that we might be able to help engage with?
Well, one thing for sure is to be a microphone. Like each individual here you each have your own networks of people you know, places you go. And these type of conversations, they come up around Thanksgiving tables, around, in different ways. And so it may not seem like a big thing, but you as a person can be that beacon, like, you are here in this space for a reason, and maybe you'll receive something. And so you can be in a space and hear someone say affordable housing. And you're like, what do you mean by that? Or you might know someone who does real estate. I mean, just spreading the word, that's something that's helpful about the work we do and what we're trying to do. And something else that's helpful is, going to the website, seeing what's on our most needed. Okay. And then that is very helpful. Because it is helpful when people just bring donations, but it is more helpful when people kind of say, what do y'all need? Instead of me just bringing these things I have here that I found.
we find that true at church as well, yeah.
So, yeah, that's one thing.
Thank you, Jessica. Kat or Tiffany?
Thanks so much. In addition to what Jessica's saying, any capacity you have to get involved. We have leadership team meeting, coordinated entry planning meetings. There's a lot of different ways to get real involved in our community meetings work. But being that microphone, if you could out there, again, not that there's lots of things identified in our gaps analysis that I think you would find really compelling. But real top one is this ability to get affordable units. And just to get specific on that, some people might have larger houses that they might be struggling to really fill up at a 4-bedroom place, We have a lot of individuals who are getting housing choice vouchers. Any landlord who would be willing to give 4 separate leases for that 4-bedroom house could have really guaranteed rent and be really helping, and could really be helping.
Thank you, Tiffany.
The other thing, and I thought about it when you were talking, is also thinking about who you elect when we go to vote. Who and what do they support? What are their, not just what's their political affiliation, but what are some of the things that they are behind or standing behind? Because I think voting at the local level is sometimes more important than voting at the presidential election. So I would say looking at what the people support, that can be a big help to our community.
That's good. And Tiffany, before I open it up, so at IFC, we had a number of sort of cook teams that were there and coming to help out and things. Are those still on hold because of the pandemic, or are those coming back? I'm just curious specifically about that.
Oh, yeah, so they're on hold until after January. We're going to start getting into back of the normal rotation. We had kind of stopped a lot of the volunteers, and that was just because of the vaccination. Some of our residents are vaccinated, some are not. We don't make it a requirement because that's just another barrier, and everyone has their own beliefs about if they feel that's the best for them. And so we kind of halted on volunteers, but after January we're going to start easing them back. And so you can go to the website and hit volunteer, and there are different ways you can help. And just another thing, because Kat was talking about data, and so the state of the community, if you go to the chamber, their website, you can see all the stats of Orange County and more about the affordable housing and AMI and income, and just more about the area and some of the things we talked about.
Say that one more time. Where would we go to find that?
Oh, the chamber for a Greater Chapel Hill. So that's I'll just Google stuff and then the website pops up. I don't know the But, I mean, yeah, the chamber.
The chamber for Greater Chapel Hill, that's great.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, friends, we have about 10 minutes left. Are there any questions? Hannah, I know you have a question. Would you shout it out, and then I'll repeat it to the crew here, and then Virginia?
Yeah.
Do you find you have barriers if there's a language problem? If you're dealing with Spanish or Chinese or Hmong or,
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Let me just get it. So the
Yes.
question is just for the recording here. The question is barriers of language to accessing services and accessing care. Great question, Hannah. Thank you. Jessica, yeah.
Yes, that's actually a good thing to bring up. Right now, in our shelters, we have a man who of Asian descent, and he has a language barrier. And he also there's some cultural things that we have to, used to. So sometimes language is a barrier, but we do have Spanish-speaking staff, and if there is like a language, we just kind of use our apps. I mean, it's
Technology has
yeah,
helped so much.
yeah, because back in the day, it was I'll be looking through a little book trying to find my little words, but now it's just kind of like app. What language did it? What dialect? But that is also a barrier because sometimes that population is misunderstood and then they get into trouble, not just because of the language barrier. And then,
Yeah.
so, and I know Tiffany and them have ways.
How's that work on the street, Tiffany, for you guys?
Well, we have two people who, I speak Spanish, and then my other teammate speaks Spanish, so I think that helps a lot. We also have for the housing helpline, when you call in, someone who speaks Spanish. So although the other language isn't Spanish, but we also have a language line that you can call and translate. So I think it may pose a small barrier, but you can always get to someone, hey, can you help this person? Even if it's not in my job description to do this role, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Oh, good. I'm glad those exist. Okay, Virginia, and then
Each of our local jurisdictions is going to get a pot of money from the federal relief fund, the ARPA fund. In Chapel Hill, it's $10 million, and in Carvo, it's $6 million. If we were to turn around and say, ladies, this is all yours, what would you do? Here's a moonshot, here's money falling out of the sky. What would you do with those funds?
Just
Thank you.
related to work.
We're talking about work related.
Virginia's asking about the funds. If we could have all those funds for ourselves, what might we do with them? But what are those big goals? What are the big things that we want if we wanted to really tackle? What would all that money allow you to do?
I think we would absolutely just completely apply it we would apply it to our gaps analysis.
Exactly.
We would, probably the first priority would be to go ahead and partner with IFC and create another shelter that's a lower barrier shelter where a person can walk up and say, I need shelter. We don't currently have that availability. So we would try and then because what we see is once we can start getting any connection to someone, street outreach, shelter, we can start building a housing plan. But just out there on their own in the car, it's a lot. So I think we'd next go to doing a little bit more permanent supportive housing. We do have more needs in the community, and that's clearly laid out in the gap, and then those units, figuring out what can transform.
Okay, and I'm just going to put a plug in for
Sorry.
myself, since a
Yeah.
lot of our positions are grant-funded. I would say also applying some of that money to the grant-funded positions so that we can stay here and we can continue to serve. It's not just mine, but there are several on the housing
Figuring out
department.
a way to
so.
make the funding leveraging,
Yeah.
that would also help. It's awesome that you say that, actually. On the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness website, as well as on our Twitter site, there's a survey right now, and we would love to get your feedback on exactly that.
All right, that's good to know. All right, let's follow up on email about that. We might be able to email folks or put it in if we want to encourage. If you want people to take it, we have people,
do.
so they can do it. I saw Hugh and then Kathleen. So Hugh's asking about the extension of this problem beyond just the towns of Chapel Hill and Carrboro, but perhaps into northern Orange County, which is more rural, yeah.
Well, our street outreach team goes to all of Orange County. So there are days that we're in Hillsborough and other areas of Chapel Hill, Carrboro, but just also the rural areas. We've met people behind gas stations, way out in rural areas, behind grocery stores. So we do go out and meet people where they are, and not just Chapel Hill, but I definitely get that.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And town of Chapel Hill, I mean, the town of Hillsborough is more and more involved in getting to the table so that we can cover the county. I would just remind us, though, that the majority of the population is in Chapel Hill and Carrboro.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Jessica, anything you want to add to that? Okay, great, because I know you guys are based, you're physically, you got the bricks and mortar, and some
Yeah.
beautiful new bricks and mortar, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, that's good. Kathleen, did you want to add, and then Vivian, to our last question.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry. So many. Never quite there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kathleen. Kathleen asking for a success story of how this, examples of this work going well, and there are many, I'm sure, but if there's any you could single out.
Tiffany recently has shared one from Street Outreach, but I wonder if there's,
I do have a
which,
different.
okay, I'm like,
Yeah.
we all see success
yeah, I
stories,
have
which
a
is
lot.
such a wonderful thing.
Someone who was working in the community as an official in capacity, so they worked in Chapel Hill, had a high-paying job, and then things happened, they lost their pension, other things happened, they went homeless. So she was living in her car for 9 years. And we started working with her, and and she has a dog, so that was another thing. She's like, I don't want to leave my dog because that's my comforter, that's my support. So I worked with her, and sometimes landlords are not as willing to work, so sometimes the apartments would fall through, and every so often she'd say, I give up, I don't even want to do this anymore, I don't want to go through this process because it just seems like it's not going to work, nothing ever works for me. So we kept at it, and after, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 months, she's now housed. And yeah,
That's good.
housed, after 9 years.
Yeah, no.
Oh, gosh.
So that's just one of the small success stories. We have a lot, that's one.
And this is just something small, but at IFC, we hire success stories. Like, we have several of our staff who have experienced homelessness or addictions and things like that 20, 30 years ago, or one person was in a homeless situation 7 years ago with her family, and now she's working. And so we honor the success stories, and we let them know, like, you're still part, and we invite them back because, so that's just something I wanted to share.
That's good. I know there are more questions, but I'm going to draw the official presentation to a close. Would you guys be willing to hang around? If people have more
Yeah.
questions, they can come up and ask you.
Yeah,
Would that be all right? I just want to know, I know there's some people who are going to be getting ready for church. I got to get ready for church in just a few minutes. But if we could, I just would invite us all to offer our thanks to Kat and Tiffany and to Jessica for their time.
Thank you.
For your time today, yes, but also for all that you do and all that you're doing in our community. We're very grateful, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and partner with you and supporting you in that work as we go forward. So thank you guys very much. If you do have questions,
Thanks,
come on
Noah.
forward. Thank you guys for watching at home, and if you've been to church, great. If you're on the way to church, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you. We need you.
Yes. Thanks, Noah.